Hello and God bless. It's me, Dick Jr. I'm coming to you today to read you Matthew 26. If you notice my glove, I have a side effect from chemo, and it causes my hands to crack and split severely. Okay, like you can suggest anything. I've tried it already, but this works. I put some Aquaphor on, I put a glove on, and I just deal with it, and that seems to help a lot. So let's get back to Matthew 26. I only took two references today. One is to Isaiah chapter 50, verse 6. That's chapter 50, verse 6 of Isaiah. The other is Daniel chapter 7, verse 13 and 14. That's chapter 7 of Daniel, verses 13 and 14. All right. I have already prayed and asked God to help me to read to you today. And I suggest anytime that you place yourself in His Word that you also pray and ask God to help you to understand what you're reading, and He will. That's His promise. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here in chapter 26, verse 1. When Jesus had finished all these words, He said to His disciples, and so I had just gone through 2 chapters of Jesus speaking about the end of times and judgment and concerning those things. Matthew chapter 24 and Matthew chapter 25, just so you can reference. So then after He said all these words, which pretty much these whole chapters are nothing but Jesus' words. So then here we are in verse 2. He says, "You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man is to be handed over for crucifixion." Right here He's very specific, and He says crucifixion. "Then the chief priests and the elders of the people were gathered together in the court of the high priest named Caiaphas." This was what was going on at the very same time. So if you could picture, like, here's Jesus talking to His disciples, and here's what's going on with the high priest. Okay? "And they plotted together to seize Jesus by stealth and kill Him." And the reason why they wanted to kill Him is because they were jealous of Him and many other things. But, it had very... Also, the Lord had laid it upon Him. Okay? That's something that you got to remember. You can't be mad at the Jewish people for this, because as we read these histories, it says that God put this upon Him, that this was supposed to happen. Okay? So if you're mad at them for this, you're mad at the wrong person. You need to be mad at God, because this was His perfect plan. You see what I mean? Okay. They plotted together to kill Him, but they were saying, "Not during the festival, otherwise a riot might occur among the people." And they didn't say the feast of the Passover. They said during the festival. You see where I'm at? It doesn't really sound as religiously important when you just call it a festival, right? "Now when Jesus was in Bethany at the home of Simon the leper," which is someplace that no Jew or Jewish person or rabbi or teacher or holy man from that day would do, is go into a leper's house. But this is the very same leper, one of the very same lepers that Jesus had cured. Okay, so now they were fast friends, and then Simon, I'm sure, was one of Jesus' disciples as well. Okay, so verse 7, "A woman came to Him with an alabaster vial of very costly perfume, and she poured it on His head as He reclined at the table." And I'm going to pause right here. I want you to remember this story specifically as you go through the other Gospels. You're going to read other ones, but there's more than one woman and more than one occurrence of something like this. This is one that happens at Simon the leper's house specifically, and it's the night before Jesus was taken. Okay? So we'll just go on. But, an alabaster as He reclined at the table. So I'll just go back up. "Now, when Jesus was in Bethany at the home of Simon the leper, a woman came to Him with an alabaster vial of very costly perfume, and she poured it on His head as He reclined at the table. But the disciples were indignant when they saw this, and said, 'Why this waste? For this perfume might have been sold for a high price and the money given to the poor.'" I suspect it was one of the disciples specifically. who said that. And I think in some of the other Gospels, it does give a name to this person. But Jesus, aware of this, and Judas is the name, I believe. But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you bother the woman? For she has done a good deed to me. For you always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me." And that right there is the thing. If you're going to do something for the poor, do something for the poor, because they're always going to be with you. Do it. You see where I'm at? All right. "For when she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial," because he's just about to be crucified and buried. Truly I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be spoken of in memory of her. Then one of the 12, named Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What are you willing to give me to betray him to you?" And they weighed out 30 pieces of silver to him. And there is a reference to Exodus 21:32, but then I'm not sure what it is. I'm not going to take it at this time, about the 30 pieces of silver. From then on, he began looking for a good opportunity to betray Jesus. He didn't do it right at that moment, per se, but within those days there that they were trying to kill him, he went to them and did this. You know what I'm saying? So now on the first day of unleavened bread, now it's time for the feast. The disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?" And he said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, the teacher says, my time is near. I am to keep the Passover at your house with my disciples." The disciples did just as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover. Now, when evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12 disciples. As they were eating, he said, "Truly I say to you that one of you will betray me." Being deeply grieved, they each one began to say to him, "Surely not I, Lord." Okay? So there's 12 of them. And they said, "Surely not I, Lord. Surely not I, Lord. Surely not I, Lord. Surely not I, Lord." You see what I mean? As it was going around the table. And he answered, "He who dipped his hand with me in the bowl is the one who will betray me. The Son of Man is to go just as it is written of him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born." And Judas, who was betraying him, said, "Surely it is not I, Rabbi." So 11 of them said, "Surely it is not I, Lord." And Judas said, "Surely it is not I, Rabbi." Okay? And Jesus said to him, "You have said it yourself." All the other ones called him Lord, but Judas called him Rabbi. So he did not believe that Jesus was the Son of God. Okay? He just thought Jesus was a teacher and a prophet at best. You see where I'm at? Okay. And while they were eating, Jesus took some bread, and after a blessing, he broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." So this is the first communion ever. This is Jesus doing it. This is not man-made. This is Jesus came up with this communion. Okay? This is the first communion, and it was given to the disciples by Jesus himself. And when he had taken a cup and given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for forgiveness of sins." And that's what happened when Jesus was on the cross. "But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." So he gave them all a drink, but did not drink the wine. Okay. After singing a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives, which is where Jesus commonly went to go pray. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away because of me this night, for it is written, I will strike down the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." And he was talking about his resurrection right there. Okay. But Peter said to him, "Even though all may fall away because of you, I will never fall away. And Jesus said to him, truly I say to you that this very night, before a rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, even if I have to die with you, I will not deny you. And that's not what he was called to do. Okay? And all the disciples said the same thing too, and that's not what they were called to do either. And that's why Jesus and God had this perfect plan. They were supposed to spread the word. If they were to all die with Jesus right there, then who would be here to tell us about Jesus or to write these books about Jesus? You see what I mean? And then Jesus came with them to the place called Gethsemane and said to his disciples, sit here while I go over there and pray. And I think that was literally disciples like everybody who followed him, not just the 12, but there was a few other people as well. And he took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, which are James and John, and began to be grieved and distressed because Jesus knew what was about to happen, that he was about to be killed on the cross. Okay, so yes, it was very scary and very upsetting and very, very. Then he said to them, my soul is deeply grieved to the point of death. Remain here and keep watch with me. So he asked them to watch the 3. Not all the 50 or all the disciples. I don't know how many were there, but just those 3, Peter, James, and John, to watch. Okay? And he said, keep watch with me. And he went a little beyond them and fell on his face and praying, saying, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. So if it's possible, I don't want to die. And then he said, yet not as I will, but as you will. So Jesus walked away and told him, stay awake and watch. But he said, not my will, your will, in his prayer. Okay? And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping and said, Peter, so you men could not keep watch with me for 1 hour. Okay? Keep watching and praying that you may not enter into temptation. So now Jesus told them to pray that they may not enter into temptation. And they probably were praying, Lord, don't let us enter into temptation. Okay? And the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, Jesus said. And I circled that because it's very important. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, which means that we're prone to wander off to sin. Okay? Our spirit is willing, but our flesh is weak. He went away again a second time and prayed, saying, my Father, if this cannot pass away unless I drink it, your will be done. So again, here Jesus said, your will be done. And he told the apostles to pray that they did not fall into temptation. And the previous time he prayed, your will be done. But both times Jesus told them to stay awake. I want you to follow me here. Because Jesus is battling with himself over the fact that he doesn't want to die, but he wants to do what God wants him to do. You see where I'm at? He went away again a second time praying, saying, my Father, if this cannot pass away, unless I drink it, your will be done. Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. Well, why were they so tired? First they were beseeching the Lord to let him not fall into temptation to sleep. And secondly, he had already woke them up now twice. You see what I mean? But Jesus was praying for God's will, not his. And God's will is that Jesus would be on the cross. And Jesus' will was for them to keep watch. But if they'd have caught watch, maybe Jesus wouldn't have been caught off guard to be, see what I mean? It's a line there. I know Jesus did this willingly. I know that. But he's also willingly asking God to make sure that this goes off just as it does. Your will, not mine. See what I mean? Again he came and found them sleeping. Okay? And he left them again and went away and prayed a third time, saying the same thing once more, which is, my Father, if this cannot pass away unless I drink it, cannot pass away unless I drink it, your will be done. And then he came to the disciples and said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? So a third time they fell asleep. Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. So he saw a group coming up the mountain. Get up, let us be going. Behold, the one who betrays me is at hand. While he was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, came up, accompanied by a large crowd with swords and clubs, who came from the chief priests and the elders of the people, which we had heard about earlier in the chapter. Now he who was betraying him gave them a sign, saying, so he said before we get there, he said, Whomever I kiss, he is the one. Seize it. Immediately Judas went to Jesus and said, Hail, Rabbi. Again, he did not call him Lord, he called him Rabbi, same as he did here. Okay? And he kissed him, which was a common practice. And Jesus said to him, Friend, do what you have come for. Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and seized him. And behold, one of those who were with Jesus reached and drew out his sword and struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, Put your sword back into its place, for all those who take up the sword shall perish by the sword. And if he would have continued to fight and died, then that would not have been according to prophecy, that Jesus would have all these men with him until he was gone. Okay? Or do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? How then will the scriptures be fulfilled, which say that it must happen this way? And this is what he's telling them. This is the way it's written. We have to do this. We have to do this. Okay? At that time, Jesus said to the crowds, Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as you would against a robber? Every day I used to sit in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But all this has taken place to fulfill the scripture of the prophets. Then all the disciples left him and fled, which is just what he said. You'd all run away. Okay? Those who had seized Jesus led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were gathered together, but Peter was following him at a distance as far as the courtyard of the high priest, and entered in, and sat down with the officers to see the outcome. Now the chief priests and the whole council kept trying to obtain false testimony against Jesus, so that they might put him to death. Okay? They did not find any, even though many false witnesses came forward. But later on, two came forward and said, This man stated, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to rebuild it in 3 days. So they've got two of them. And he did say this, okay? But he wasn't talking about literally the temple of God, the one made out of stone and wood. And, you know, he wasn't talking about that. He was talking about his body, okay? The temple of his body. And that he would be resurrected in 3 days. Okay, so then the high priest stood up and said to him, Do you not answer? What is it that these men are testifying against you? And so they didn't fully understand it, and they asked him, and he wasn't going to answer because he did say it, but not as they were saying it. You see what I mean? And he's also supposed to, according to the scriptures, stay silent. Okay. And the high priest said to him, I adjure you by the living God that you tell us whether you are the Christ, the Son of God. So what he did was he used God's power, invoked God. He said, if I force you by the name of God, if you believe in God, if you really believe in God, you're going to do what God, say this thing. Tell us right now. You know what I mean? Is basically what they said. And Jesus said to him, You have said it yourself. And what he had said is, you are the Christ. See what I mean? Nevertheless, I tell you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Okay, and I underlined that. And at this time, we're going to go to Deuteronomy. I must have passed one here. So we're going to go ahead and go. Is that Deuteronomy? Daniel. Sorry. Daniel 7, 13 and 14. And it's in reference to what he says here. The Son of Man sitting, hereafter you will see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. That's what Jesus said. But what Jesus did was he quoted Daniel. Okay? And it says in Daniel, I kept looking in the night vision, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming. Okay? And he came up to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom, that all the peoples, nations, and men of every language might serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which will not pass away, and his kingdom is one which will not be destroyed. Okay, so that's talking specifically about Jesus. It's in the book of Daniel. Well, Jesus quoted Daniel to him as if he is the Son of Man, which he is. I mean, he's the Son of God, which he is. He is the Son of God. So then, verse 65, it says, Then the high priest tore his robes and said, He has blasphemed. What further need do we have of witnesses? Behold, you have now heard the blasphemy. So he told him to say it, then he said it, and now he's accusing him of blasphemy because he's lying. You're obviously lying. Okay? What do you think? They answered. He deserves death. So they said, kill him. Okay. Verse 67, Then they spat in his face and beat him with their fists, and others slapped him and said, Prophesy to us, you Christ, who is the one who hit you. But I want to bring special note to the fact that they called him Christ there. Okay. Prophesy to us, you Christ. Okay. So even they were saying it to him. Now Peter was, wait. And now we're going to go to, is this where we go to Isaiah? Oh yeah, verse 67, where it says, Then they spat in his face and beat him with their fists, and others slapped him. And I'm going to take us to Isaiah 50, verse 6, which, Isaiah 50, verse 6, I gave my back to those who strike me, and my cheeks to those who pluck out the beard. I did not cover my face from humiliation and spitting. But this is a prophecy that includes bits of who Jesus is, or who Jesus is going to be. This was all written before he was born, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. But that's what that was about. And see, he had to go up as a lamb to the slaughter. He couldn't fight. I mean, these are all prophecies that were delivered. He had to do all these things. These are just a few of them that I'm pointing out as we go through here. So then we'll start here in verse 69. Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and the servant girl came in and said, You too were with Jesus the Galilean. But he denied it before them all, saying, I do not know what you're talking about. And when he had gone out to the gateway, another servant girl saw him and said to those who were there, This man was with Jesus of Nazareth. And again he denied it with an oath, I do not know the man. And he probably said, I swear to God, I don't know the man. And that's why they didn't write it. Just an oath. Okay. A little later, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, Surely you too are one of them, for even the way you talk gives you away. So he was not from there. He was from Galilee, and Jesus was from that region as well. So they could tell that they were Galilean by the way that they talked. You see what I mean? Then he began to curse and swear, I do not know the man. And immediately a rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the word which Jesus had said, Before a rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And he went out and wept bitterly. And as you remember when I read that before. So I'm going to go back to this where it says, Prophesy to us, you Christ. And I'm just going to say, if you go to Mark chapter 14, verse 65, you're going to find prophesy in this same situation. It says the same thing, telling Jesus to do. And in Luke 22:64, you're going to find the same thing where it says prophesy. But it does not say prophesy to us, you Christ, only in Matthew. I just thought I'd put that in there as a little side note. So thanks for listening to me read, and God bless.